The red is the blood of Ukrainians, the black is the Ukrainian earth. This was the interpretation of the red and black flag, which was adopted in 1943 by a radical offshoot of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, abbreviated OUN, and later by the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, the UPA. What's problematic about this symbol is not its anarchist aesthetic alone, but the ideology that it embodies. Authoring Nationalism and publishing it in 1926, Dmytro Dontsov fathered the ideological bedrock of OUN and UPA, having translated excerpts of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf and Mussolini's La Dottrina del Fascismo. Dontsov's ideology was strongly inspired by Nazism and fascism. It prioritized a nation above any other values, including faith and religion. Dontsov extolled principles of willpower, ruthless struggle, and amorality. He promulgated his fascist ideology as chief editor of the literally scientific Herald, inspiring new generations of Ukrainian nationalists like Stepan Bandera and Roman Szukiewicz. Doing justice to truth, Dontsov was paradoxically a proponent of an anti-Bolshevik Polish-Ukrainian alliance in the interwar period. Regardless, in his own writing, Stepan Bandera developed Dontsov's ideas, making Volhynia an unalienable part of his vision of an independent Ukraine. This is what Bandera wrote in his pamphlet entitled Perspectives of the Ukrainian Revolution.
The Poles' stubborn insistence on unjustified claims to Western Ukrainian lands makes any Ukrainian-Polish understanding and cooperation impossible.
The Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists was hijacked by its radical Banderite elements. Now headed by Roman Szukiewicz, another avid reader of Dontsov, the OUN-B's ideology of amoral and ruthless independence struggle was put into action by murdering tens of thousands of Poles in Volhynia and eastern Galicia. Ethnic cleansing, the primacy of the collective, the cult of personality, and revolutionary transformation put Banderism on par with communism and especially with Nazism, with which it shares its Semitical insistence on land and blood.
Mr. Ambassador, let's set the stage now. What are the origins of Ukrainian nationalism, and would you say that they were more focused on resisting Polish rule or Russian imperialism, particularly after we watch this clip?
This is a very long discussion. Let's make long story short and say that a part of Ukrainian elite in the interwar period in Polish eastern provinces, now western provinces of Ukraine, rejected Polish statehood, and they aspired to a sovereign Ukrainian state with methods of acts of terror, of conspiracy. They were not the only representatives of Ukrainian society in then Polish Commonwealth, Polish-Lithuanian Ukrainian Commonwealth. There were legal parties, Ukrainian parties, who were deputies in Polish Sejm, and they acknowledged this common state. They aspired for a bigger autonomy. These movements seem to me, unfortunately, forgotten in modern Ukraine, and only figures like Bandera, Konowalec, Dontsov kind of represent in contemporary Ukrainian identity this independence movement. They were repressed by the Polish state as a illegal military militia-like organizations. And unfortunately, some in contemporary Ukraine tend to justify the Volhynia Massacres by the fact that leadership structures of own movement in pre-war Poland were repressed, and that there was some sort of a pressure against the national minorities. We acknowledge it. Today in Poland, I don't know any reasonable person who would say that pre-war Poland was successful when it comes to national minorities policies. Of course, we failed in many respects, not only vis-à-vis the Ukrainians, also the Jews, also Lithuanians. But to justify ethnic cleansing in 1943, 1944 by pre-war decisions of the Polish government, this is completely unbased to me, which is proven by the fact that majority of Ukrainian independence movement acknowledged Polish state. They were part of Polish political scene. They had deputies. They had their legal education system, their press, etc., etc. But here we are. We are 85 years plus after the events. I would say there are two elements to the controversy we are witnessing, unfortunately, still. This is one is history. What did happen? And there is major disagreement between Polish historians and Ukrainian historians.
So what is the main disagreement, if I can ask you right there, the main disagreements? In
this part, what did happen, the disagreement is that while we claim that this was a planned on the political level of OUN decision to exterminate Poles, to push non-Ukrainian ethnic elements out of Volhynia and occupied Lviv, Stanisławiv, Ternopil voivodeships to create purely Ukrainian populated territories, and then claim after the war finishes that this is territory of Ukraine. OUN believed very much that the collision between Soviet Union and Nazi Germany would create circumstances for Ukrainian independence. And the question for them was, where would be the borders of this new country, of this new Ukraine? They figured out, like Dontsov in this video, that it would be decided on the ethnic criterion. So if there are no Poles, Jews, Czechs, Germans, this is Ukraine. And we believe the decision about ethnic cleansing, what Milosevic did the same in Yugoslavia decades later, was political and then implemented by UPA, by this Ukrainian insurgent army on a massive scale. The Ukrainian historians claim this was another Polish-Ukrainian conflict. People killed each other. Right. The responsibility is the same, is equal. Poles would kill the Ukrainians would kill Poles, and there was no central decision delivered to the ground. And there is second part, where today Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, would take administrative decisions, for example, limiting our right to search and exhumate the remains of our ancestors, right, would censor, for example, certain movies or spectacles, like Smarzowski's Wołyń movie, which was effectively, not formally.
So it was selective memory. You're saying it was sort of a
by administrative decisions.
Right.
We, Poland, as a government, we do not believe we have a right to instruct historians in Ukraine or those who are marching and celebrating Bandera's birthday. If people want, this is their right. But if the government spends public money on Szuchewicz monument, right, or renaming streets after the mass murderers, or Ukrainian government forbids us to exhumate victims of different conflicts, then we react.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to ask you, I mean, you served as ambassador, as Poland's ambassador to Ukraine in 2019, if I'm not mistaken on the dates. I mean, I want to ask you two things. From everything that you've just said, what did you personally experience with Ukrainians about this context of particularly about the symbols that we saw, and I mean, of how significant they were back then, and have they also, and and has their importance of these symbols risen since then and since the war broke out? And also, what are some personal things that you experienced as ambassador or that you saw in this context?
Indeed, I started my service in Ukraine in 2019, but beforehand I was Deputy Foreign Minister, and already then we had a very hot, I would say, tension around those identity issues. So I was involved already since 2017. In Kyiv, it's completely different situation. In Kyiv, Kyiv is a capital in the center of Ukraine. It involves, it brings in people from different parts of Ukraine, from Donbass, from south, from west. On many occasions, I would be asked by my colleagues or friends born in Donetsk or Lugansk, what's this all about? They had, like President Zelensky himself, he had no idea about this story. There is very strong disagreement within Ukrainian society about kind of post-Soviet identities and those Western Ukrainian authorities. Generally speaking, I would say there is I would call it a post-Soviet syndrome. Ukrainians are very reluctant to touch upon history. They were taught during the Soviet times that history is unpredictable and history serves as a political instrument. So do
you think that accepting, for them understanding or accepting the Volhynia killings is actually still a taboo in Ukraine?
For many, there is a small but very active group of historian/politicians who promoted UPA and Bandera to the state level. Today, even many are not aware that this parole "Slava Ukraini, herojam slava" is a parole introduced by the most bloody faction of UPA. There were different versions of it. The 21st century Ukraine, for reasons unknown to me and difficult to accept, make choice for the most horrible part. But this was made by the very aware, active group of people who are deans in top universities, who are deputies to Verkhovna Rada. I am absolutely sure that if dean of a history faculty of University of Warsaw was rejecting Polish responsibility for some crimes during Second World War against our Jewish citizens or other citizens, this would create a universal international scandal. In Ukraine, it's not the case. And falsely, this Volhynia story is presented as a Polish-Ukrainian bilateral issue. It should not be like this. This should be a European concern, and the Ukrainian elite, our Ukrainian friends, should be aware that when they build monuments to successors of totalitarian ideologies, Nazi or Soviet or whatever, they are actually making their way to the unified Europe challenging. They have, unfortunately, every day today, Ukraine has new hundreds of true heroes. Why contemporary Ukraine selects people who are not only responsible for Polish ethnic cleansing, but also for Holocaust on contemporary Ukraine's territory. This is wrong.
Just before, you said something very, very important there, but before we get into that, because what you just said is going to lead to the present, I'm going to invite you to watch our second clip.
In late August, newly sworn-in Polish President Karol Nawrocki proposed to amend legislation that would ban symbols used by Ukrainian nationalists during World War II from public display in Poland. The move would put them on par with Nazi and communist flags and insignia. The proposal came in the wake of clashes between Polish and Ukrainian audiences at the performance of Belarusian rapper Max Korsz that took place at Warsaw's National Stadium in early August. The fighting was prompted by some Ukrainian fans raising a red and black Ukrainian insurgent army flag, which Poles associate with the Volhynia Massacre. Alongside the proposal to ban these symbols comes President Nawrocki's decision to veto a bill extending financial aid and benefits for Ukrainian refugees in Poland.
Family benefits should only be granted to those Ukrainians who make the effort to work in Poland. The same with healthcare.
The moves soured volatile Polish-Ukrainian relations with Kiev, promising retaliatory action. Both countries have stakes in keeping their relationship intact. For an estimated 1.6 million Ukrainians in Poland, it's the country's job market, welfare system and security. According to an UNHCR and Deloitte report dated June 2025, in 2024, Ukrainian refugees contributed 2.7% of the Polish GDP. For Poland, the stake is national remembrance and the exhumation of Polish World War II victims, including those murdered by Ukrainians whose bodies remain in Ukrainian soil. Widely regarded as a war criminal in Poland, Bandera is considered by many in Ukraine to be a national hero who fought for an independent Ukraine, while the red and black flag is seen as a symbol of the struggle for sovereignty. The staunch anti-communism of Bandera and the Banderite ideology's abhorrence of Russian imperialism drive some Ukrainians defending their homeland, but they remain an unwieldy reservoir of extremist virtues. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Ernest Becker once wrote that since the main task of human life is to become heroic and transcend death, every culture must provide its members with an intricate symbolic system that is covertly religious. Only some Ukrainian symbols are drenched in Polish blood. And yet, today, as more and more Ukrainians die resisting Russia's onslaught, new Ukrainian heroes and symbols are enshrined, ones that have nothing in common with Stepan Bandera and his red and black genocidal mark.
Now, just before we watched this video, you talked about heroes. So let's talk about creating new heroes. Now, my question to you is, in today's war against Russia, producing new Ukrainian heroes that could actually replace Bandera and his toxic legacy, or do some Ukrainians simply not view it that way?
Yes, I agree with you. And I think in Poland, in many other countries, we have disagreements or different we put different accents on symbols, and we may be in Poland, we may dislike certain movements or symbols in Ukraine, but unless a state is not involved. Those marches in Bandera's birthday in early January every year, no one from the government or Verkhovna Rada participates in it. We are watching it very carefully. But when a street is renamed, when there is monument built by public money, it's different situation. The paradox is that in Ukraine, Bandera provokes more negative sentiments than positive. This is still a minority issue. Simply, this majority, skeptical, let's say, about Banderovites, is silent. They don't want to. On many occasions, when I would protest as ambassador, deputy foreign minister, against a case when Ukrainian state supports those who are responsible for mass murders, my colleagues from Kyiv would come to me and say, look, these guys from the West are crazy. Why they are doing this? You are right. This is absolutely unacceptable. I would say, so support me. Tell it publicly. Oh, no, we cannot risk.
They don't want to speak.
We don't want to get into those problems. This is history. Let's leave history to historians. I would say, okay, but
So do you not, that you said something very factual right there. So do you not think that they would only use certain elements, certain historical elements, whenever they see fit, or to their advantage whenever they need to use it?
I think this group of promoters of the renaissance of UPA or own UPA in Ukraine, this myth, like all the myths, is already detached from the historical reality. Today, those black and red flags, in 99%, they have nothing in, the sentiment behind has nothing in common with Poland. This is anti-Russian, anti-Soviet symbolism.
But yet we saw that just a couple of weeks ago at a concert, at a Belarusian rappers concert here in Warsaw, and that caused quite the chaotic scene.
Yes, and this is absolutely obvious why we react this way. But at the same time, this teenager who put up the flag excused himself afterwards. He was probably unaware. Our reading of those symbols is completely different from their reading. I'm not saying this for us to kind of give up on our claims or on our concerns, but just to realize that if in trenches around Pokrovsk or somewhere in the east we see red and black flags, it has nothing to do with Poles. But the paradox is that Ukrainian nationalists are natural allies for us in anti-imperial defense against Russia. This is the paradox. And they are usually absolutely pro-Polish. Their understanding of what happened 85 years ago is completely different. They believe it was a conflict between people, unorganized, chaotic, in the chaos of the war. We did not provoke. We were victims. They call it not by accident. Officially in Ukrainian, it's called Volhynia tragedy. Like, you know, tragedy, I don't know, house collapsed and it's a tragedy. And we believe it was not by accident. Somebody decided, agreed, and gave orders.
Ambassador, let's talk about reconciliation and where do we stand now? Where do Poland and Ukraine stand now with the exhumations of the bodies?
We made huge progress, this is a pity that only the Russian aggression and Polish solidarity to Ukraine created a confidence on the Ukrainian side. I think I watched it with my own eyes. The Ukrainians, in a way, discovered Poland anew. They were surprised that Poland is so supportive, and they started to rethink their perception of Poland. It created, our solidarity created kind of a comfort and relax, I would say. And there were people on the top, in the top ranks, like Andriy Sybiha, Mykola Toczycki, Ambassador Wasyl Bodnar, and others, new head of the Ukrainian Institute of National Remembrance, who made their way to the top ranks, that this should not be the case, that we are forbidden to search and exhumate and then bury our ancestors, the same like Ukrainians may do in Poland. Exhumations, first exhumations and burials were happened in Późniki in Ternopil Oblast this Saturday. Senior officials took part from both sides, which confirms how important this is, and new understanding, I think, new awareness
between
around
Polish and Ukrainian alliance.
Yes.
And Mr. Ambassador, just briefly before we finish, because we're almost out of time, what is your take on the Polish President Karol Nawrocki, who now wants to ban these UPA symbols?
Well, I think this is a great challenge to direct identity issues by laws. Second, I'm rather supporting kind of educational, soft power actions. Plus, according to my knowledge, under existing Polish law, promotion of totalitarian symbols are already. You may be whether you show on your T-shirt Che Guevara, Lenin, or Bandera in Poland, you risk fine. Formally, whether practically this is followed, that's different question. But the existing law already forbids totalitarian symbols in Poland, including the Ukrainian national totalitarian
Thank you
symbol.
so much, Mr. Ambassador Bartosz Cichocki, for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all for this episode of How We Got Here. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching. Until next week.